The crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council sparkled with the light of 3 setting suns as High Observer Xerix reviewed the latest reports from Earth. The towering insectoid's compound eyes reflected countless data streams, each showing different aspects of human advancement. Their rapid progression from primitive combustion engines to antimatter drives had caught the attention of every major species in the galaxy. Most peculiar, Xerix chittered to his assistant, a sphere-shaped Malorian who hover-glided nearby. These humans have achieved in 3 centuries what took other species millennia. Their pattern contradicts all established development models. The latest footage showed a human vessel performing an impossible maneuver near Mars, using the planet's gravity well in ways that defied conventional navigation protocols. The ship's design itself was a contradiction, practical yet aesthetic, efficient yet distinctive. Like everything humans created, it carried the mark of both function and artistic expression. High Observer, the Malorian assistant, hummed, its crystalline surface rippling with concern. The Valarn delegation requests an immediate audience. Their predictive matrices are unsettled by the human variable. Xerix's antennae twitched in surprise. The Valarn, masters of probability and prediction, were rarely unsettled by anything. Their mathematical models had accurately forecast the development of dozens of species across the galaxy. For them to request an audience meant something truly unprecedented was occurring. The chamber doors parted, admitting 3 Valarn representatives. Their silver-scaled bodies caught the fading sunlight, creating rainbow patterns across the floor. The lead Valarn, Ambassador Nyx, moved with the precise grace characteristic of their species. High Observer, Nyx began, their voice a melodic sequence of harmonics. Our latest analysis of human development has revealed disturbing anomalies. They are not following any known technological progression pattern. They fail, adapt, and advance in ways our models cannot predict. Xerix activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Explain these anomalies, Ambassador. Observe their space program. Nyx indicated a series of images. They reached their moon using computational power less sophisticated than a modern food synthesizer. When faced with disasters, they improvised solutions using minimal resources. Their Apollo 13 incident defies all logical survival probabilities. The Malorian assistant pulsed with curiosity. Perhaps our models are incomplete. Impossible, another Valarn delegate interjected. Our predictive matrices account for all rational developmental paths. Yet humans consistently choose options that appear suboptimal, only to achieve unexpected successes. Xerix studied the latest images from Earth. Humans were now testing their first faster-than-light drive, using principles that combined 3 different theoretical approaches in ways no other species had considered. Their solution was elegant in its seeming irregularity. What do your matrices predict for their first interstellar contact? Xerix asked. Ambassador Nyx's scales rippled with unease. That is the primary reason for our concern. Every simulation ends differently. Some show peaceful integration. Others predict significant cultural disruption across the galaxy. The only constant is change. Humans appear to be a catalyst for transformation. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. The Galactic Council had maintained stability for millennia by carefully managing the development and integration of new species. Humanity represented an unknown factor in their carefully balanced equation. Perhaps, the Malorian assistant ventured, that is exactly what the galaxy needs. Our civilization has grown stable but stagnant. These humans, with their unpredictable ways, might offer new perspectives. Xerix's antennae waved thoughtfully as he reviewed Earth's artistic and cultural data streams. Humans spent considerable resources on activities that seemed to serve no practical purpose, creating music, telling stories, exploring simply for the sake of discovery. Yet these seemingly inefficient pursuits had led to countless innovations. We will not interfere with their development, Xerix finally declared. Let us observe how they handle their first steps into the galactic community. Their methods may be unusual, but their achievements are undeniable. As the Valarn delegates departed, Xerix watched a new data stream showing a human ship preparing for its first faster-than-light jump. The vessel's name was painted on its hull in multiple Earth languages. Horizon Breaker. The name seemed fitting. One way or another, humanity was about to break through to a new horizon. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps, Xerix reflected, that was exactly what they all needed. The Grand Hall of Diplomatic Relations buzzed with tension as Junior Ambassador Sarah Chen stifled a yawn. After 20 hours of negotiations between the Arcturians and the Zephyrians over mathematical principles that predated both their civilizations, she desperately needed her third cup of coffee. The dispute centered on the interpretation of multidimensional calculus used in faster-than-light travel calculations. The Arcturians, with their binary thought processes, insisted on a rigid two-pathway solution, while the Zephyrians, evolved from spiral-shelled creatures, advocated for a curved approach. Sarah watched her coffee swirl in her cup, creating a spiral pattern that gradually settled into parallel lines. She blinked, then straightened suddenly in her chair. The answer was so obvious it was almost funny. Distinguished representatives, she spoke up, her voice clear despite her fatigue. May I offer an observation? The Arcturian chief mathematician, a towering figure of crystalline angles, turned all four of their sensor arrays toward her. The human wishes to contribute. This dispute has persisted for 300 cycles. Sarah stood, carrying her coffee cup to the central projection area. Sometimes fresh eyes see old problems differently. Watch this, please. She gave her coffee a gentle swirl, causing the liquid to spiral. As it settled, she explained, the force that creates the spiral pattern eventually resolves into parallel flows, just like your competing theories. The Zephyrian Grand Calculator extended their sensory stalks over the cup. Explain further, young one. Using her spoon, Sarah demonstrated how the fluid dynamics created a natural progression from spiral to linear motion. Both your theories are correct, just at different stages of the same process. The Zephyrian spiral equations describe the initial energy state, while the Arcturian binary solution represents the final resolved state. The hall fell silent. Thousands of years of mathematical dispute resolved by a cup of coffee and human intuition. Ambassador Nixus of the Vailarn, who had been observing silently, approached the demonstration. Their silver scales shimmered with interest. This is unprecedented. You derive this solution from a beverage. Sarah smiled. We humans often find answers in unexpected places. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to step back and look for patterns in everyday things. The Arcturian representative processed this for several moments. The mathematical proofs would need verification, but the basic principle appears sound. Most irregular, finding universal constants in a heated liquid. That's humanity for you, Sarah said, taking another sip of her coffee. We have a knack for finding elegant solutions in chaos. Would you like to try some coffee? It might inspire more breakthroughs. The offer sent ripples of surprise through the assembly. Sharing sustenance wasn't standard diplomatic protocol, but then again, nothing about this session had been standard. The Zephyrian Grand Calculator was the first to accept. Their sensory appendages dipped carefully into a fresh cup, followed by a burst of phosphorescent colors across their shell, their species' expression of delight. The thermal and chemical properties are most stimulating, they announced. Perhaps this is why humans can make such intuitive leaps. Your beverages enhance cognitive function. As word spread through the diplomatic station about the human who solved an ancient mathematical dispute with a cup of coffee, Sarah found herself at the center of increasing attention. Species she'd only read about in briefings approached her with questions, not just about mathematics, but about human problem-solving methods. The Vailarn ambassador lingered after others had departed. Your approach today violated 16 different diplomatic protocols. They noted, their tone curious rather than accusatory. Yet it achieved in moments what centuries of formal discourse could not. Sarah gathered her notes, hiding a smile. Sometimes the best solutions come when we're willing to break from conventional thinking. Humanity's greatest achievements often started with someone asking, "Why not try it differently?" As she headed back to her quarters, Sarah heard the Valarn ambassador request a complete analysis of human beverages and their potential impact on cognitive function. She wondered what they'd make of energy drinks. The next morning, the Galactic Council's Diplomatic Protocol Handbook had a new appendix on the value of informal observational methods in problem resolution. Sarah counted that as a win. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs came not from shattering barriers, but from gently showing others how to step around them. The distress beacon from Research Station Omega pulsed weakly through the methane storms of Titan VYI. Inside the Galactic Council's Emergency Response Center, dozens of species debated rescue options, while monitoring systems tracked the deteriorating conditions around the station. "Impossible," declared Chief Coordinator Velks, their bioluminescent patches flickering with distress. "The environmental conditions exceed all safety parameters. The station's 300 researchers cannot survive evacuation in these conditions." The human representative, Commander Maya Rodriguez, studied the holographic display of the station's layout. The structure was slowly sinking into the planet's semi-liquid surface, while Category 5 methane storms battered its failing shields. "What's the estimated survival time in those conditions?" Maya asked, already removing her formal uniform jacket. "Without environmental suits, 2 minutes. With our most advanced suits, 1 hour. The rescue operation would require at least 72 hours. Velks's color patterns shifted to deep indigo, a sign of resignation. Maya activated her comlink. "This is Commander Rodriguez. I need the Pathfinder team geared up and ready in 5 minutes." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in protest. A Cerulean observer extended their probability tendrils, analyzing the scenario. "Human environmental resistance cannot exceed our own. Your species will perish." "Probably," Maya agreed, checking her equipment. "But we're really good at surviving things we shouldn't. Better to try than to stand here debating." 6 hours later, Maya's team of 8 humans had established a base camp in the storm. Their environmental suits were failing, but they discovered that layering 2 damaged suits provided enough protection to keep moving. They named this improvisation the Space Onion Strategy. "Status update," Velks demanded through the crackling comlink. "First 50 researchers secured," Maya reported, her voice strained but determined. "Peters is telling terrible jokes to keep morale up. Johnson started a betting pool on who'll need the most shower time after this. Standard human coping mechanisms in play." The alien observers watched in fascination as the humans continued working long past when their biological limits should have forced them to stop. They sang songs, shared stories, and somehow maintained efficiency despite their evident exhaustion. At hour 36, Maya's team lost power to their outer suits. They continued with just the inner layer, accepting the increased risk. When asked about this decision, Maya's response was typically human. "The researchers don't care about our comfort level. They just want to see their families again." The Cerulean probability tendrils were tying themselves in knots trying to calculate survival chances. By hour 50, the humans had evacuated 200 researchers, establishing a relay system through the storm. Their method defied optimal efficiency calculations but worked nonetheless. "How are they still moving?" a junior analyst asked, watching the humans work through conditions that had already destroyed 3 automated rescue drones. "They're leveraging their social bonds," Velks observed, their bioluminescence pulsing with revelation. "Each human draws strength from the others, creating a sustainable circuit of determination." Fascinating. At hour 67, with the station's structural integrity falling below 10%, Maya's team extracted the last researcher. The humans emerged from the storm covered in frozen methane, their suits barely functional, singing an old Earth song about bottles of beer on a wall. In the medical bay, as doctors of various species treated the rescue team for exposure and exhaustion, Maya filed her report from her recovery bed. The official record noted that all 300 researchers were saved, with only minor injuries among the human rescue team. "Commander," Velks approached her bed, their colors showing deep respect. Your species' endurance defies our understanding. How did you continue when all biological indicators suggested you should have failed? Maya looked at her team, now arguing about whose suit malfunction was the most spectacular. We humans have a saying: the difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. She smiled. Also, Peters really did tell terrible jokes. We had to finish quickly just to make him stop. The Galactic Council revised their emergency protocols the next day. A new directive was added. In situations exceeding standard environmental parameters, human emotional and social factors must be considered as survival multipliers. When asked to explain this cryptic addition, Velk simply replayed the footage of 8 humans singing their way through a methane storm, carrying researchers to safety while cracking jokes about needing a hot shower. Sometimes they realized the most advanced solution was simply the determination not to give up. Grandmaster Sarah Chen sat across from HFY, the Valarn's most sophisticated strategic computer. The crystalline gaming chamber hummed with anticipation as spectators from across the galaxy gathered to witness this unprecedented match. Traditional chess had evolved into quantum chess, played across 11 dimensions with pieces that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Your previous matches indicate a 98% preference for defensive opening strategies, HFY's melodic voice announced. My algorithms have prepared accordingly. Sarah smiled, thinking of her grandfather teaching her chess in their small apartment back on Earth. The beautiful thing about preferences is that they can change. She moved her quantum knight into a startlingly aggressive position, causing murmurs among the observers. The Valarn scientists monitoring HFY's quantum processors exchanged concerned glances. Their champion computer had analyzed millions of chess matches, learning every possible strategy. But humans had a peculiar way of defying statistical probability. Irregular opening, HFY noted. Calculating optimal counter-response. The computer's holographic display flickered as it processed the unexpected move. Sarah maintained a relaxed posture, seemingly unconcerned with the billions of calculations being performed against her single move. You know, my grandfather always said chess isn't about the current move. It's about the story you're telling through your pieces. 3 hours into the match, HFY had lost its predicted advantage. Sarah's pieces danced across the quantum planes in patterns that appeared random but carried a subtle orchestration that even the computer's advanced algorithms struggled to decode. Your strategies do not align with optimal play patterns, HFY observed, its voice carrying a hint of what almost sounded like frustration. Victory probability calculations become unstable when processing your movements. That's because I'm not playing to win, Sarah replied, shifting her quantum bishop across 5 dimensions simultaneously. I'm playing to learn something new. Sometimes the most interesting paths appear when we step away from optimal solutions. The Valarn scientists huddled around their monitoring stations, watching HFY's prediction matrices twist themselves into impossible shapes trying to anticipate Sarah's next move. The computer had been programmed to recognize and counter every known chess strategy, but Sarah wasn't using any of them. She was creating something new with each turn. Fascinating, whispered lead scientist Nix to their colleagues. The human is treating the game as an exploration rather than a competition. HFY's victory-oriented algorithms cannot process this approach. 6 hours in, Sarah initiated what appeared to be a catastrophic sacrifice of her quantum queen. HFY's processors hummed louder, detecting the apparent mistake. The computer moved to capitalize on the error, only to discover 3 turns later that the sacrifice had created a subtle pattern of quantum entanglement across multiple dimensions. Checkmate in 5 moves, Sarah announced quietly. HFY's holographic display flickered rapidly as it verified her claim. Confirmed. Victory achieved through unprecedented strategic path. Requesting permission to add this pattern to my database. Sarah shook her head, rising from her chair. You can record the moves, but the pattern won't help you next time. The point wasn't the specific sequence, It was the willingness to explore unexpected possibilities. The chamber erupted in discussion as Sarah made her way to the exit. The Valarn scientists rushed to analyze the game data, trying to understand how their perfect computer had been defeated by what appeared to be imperfect play. Lead scientist Nix caught up with Sarah near the chamber doors. "Your approach to the game defies our understanding of strategic optimization. How can suboptimal moves lead to superior results?" Sarah paused, considering the question. "Your computer plays to win. Humans play to discover. Sometimes the best discoveries come from being willing to lose in interesting ways." She smiled. "Besides, who decides what's optimal? Maybe the most optimal strategy is allowing yourself to try something new." As Sarah departed, the Valarn scientists began a complete reprogramming of HFY's core algorithms. Perhaps victory wasn't always about following the most efficient path. Perhaps there was something to be learned from the human ability to find beauty in imperfection and possibility in apparent chaos. The match data was added to the Galactic library with a unique notation: first recorded instance of victory, achieved through intentional deviation from optimal play patterns. Human Strategic Paradox Study Case Number 1. The Galactic Research Hub's central laboratory sparkled with holographic displays as Dr. Elena Martinez demonstrated her latest project to an audience of interstellar scientists. The chamber, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and atmospheric requirements, buzzed with anticipation. "So," Elena said, holding up what appeared to be a simple silver sphere, "who wants to see what happens when you combine Zephyrian quantum crystallography with Earth's soap bubble mechanics?" The assembled scientists shifted uncomfortably. An Exilian researcher raised their sensory appendage. "Those technologies are incompatible. Quantum crystallography requires absolute structural precision, while soap bubbles are inherently chaotic." "Exactly." Elena's eyes sparkled with excitement. "But what if that's exactly why they should work together? Watch this." She activated the sphere, and immediately, iridescent quantum bubbles filled the air, each one a perfect molecular scanner. "Impossible," whispered an Arcturian physicist, all four of their optical sensors dilating in surprise. The quantum bubbles were doing the work of million-credit scanning equipment, but with an efficiency that defied conventional physics. Chief Researcher Lyra of the Valarn stepped forward, their silver scales reflecting the rainbow patterns of the bubbles. "Dr. Martinez, your species has an unsettling habit of combining things that should not logically connect. How did you conceive this?" Elena caught one of the bubbles on her finger. "I was giving my niece a bubble bath while reviewing quantum equations. She asked why her bubbles couldn't be sparkly space bubbles like in her stories. That got me thinking, why not?" The explanation sent ripples of confusion through the audience. A Malorian scientist pulsed with bewilderment. "You developed a revolutionary scanning technology because of a child's bath time question. Humans call it lateral thinking," Elena explained, directing the bubbles to scan a complex molecular structure. "Sometimes the best solutions come from connecting seemingly unrelated ideas. Children are especially good at it because they haven't learned what's supposedly impossible yet." The implications of this approach spread through the scientific community like a quantum wave. Research teams began experimenting with unlikely combinations. Drachnid thermal regulators mixed with Earth air conditioning principles, Malorian sound waves combined with human music theory, even ancient Earth origami techniques applied to spacecraft design. In the weeks that followed, Elena found herself invited to research stations across the galaxy. Species that had spent millennia specializing in singular fields of study were suddenly eager to learn about human cross-disciplinary thinking. At a prestigious science academy on Nexilus Prime, a student raised an interesting point during one of Elena's lectures. "But how do you know which random combinations to try? The possibilities are infinite." Elena drew a simple Venn diagram on the holoboard. "We don't know. That's what makes it fun. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But curiosity is the cool aunt who shows up with crazy ideas and changes everything." The concept of scientific play was revolutionary to species that had evolved to seek optimal efficiency in all things. The idea that breakthrough innovations could come from simply asking, "What if?" and trying unexpected combinations challenged centuries of established research methodology. 3 months after the quantum bubble demonstration, the Galactic Research Hub had to create a new division solely dedicated to what they termed human innovative principles. Research efficiency across all fields increased by 300%, largely because scientists were finally giving themselves permission to explore illogical possibilities. "I have a confession," Elena told Chief Researcher Lyra during a private meeting. "Half the time, we humans don't know why we try the combinations we do. We just have a feeling, an intuition that something interesting might happen." Lyra's scales shifted in a pattern indicating deep thought. "Perhaps that is your species' greatest gift to galactic science. You teach us that not everything needs a logical explanation to be worth trying." The next day, Elena walked into her lab to find it filled with scientists from dozens of species, all engaged in what they solemnly termed purposeful play. An Arcturian crystallographer was teaching a Zephyrian energy specialist about Earth children's building blocks, while a Nixilian quantum theorist was learning about human finger painting. On her desk, she found a note from Lyra. "We have spent millennia seeking perfection in isolation. Perhaps it is time we learn to build sandcastles together." Elena smiled, pinned the note to her board, and joined a group trying to combine Milorian light weaving with the principles of Earth disco balls. After all, she thought, the next big breakthrough could come from anywhere. In the grand auditorium of the Galactic Cultural Exchange, First Director Zena prepared for the most unusual performance in the venue's 1,000-year history. Musicians from Earth's Sydney Symphony Orchestra sat beside beings from 12 different star systems, each holding instruments that had never been designed to play together. "Are you certain about this?" asked Harmonics Coordinator Vix, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Each species develops music based on their unique sensory and mathematical frameworks. The combinations may be disturbing." Lisa Chen, the orchestra's conductor, simply smiled as she arranged her sheet music. "Music isn't just math and sensory input. It's emotion, story, and soul all wrapped into one. Trust me, this will work." The audience chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Many had never experienced human music, their species having developed sound purely for communication rather than artistic expression. The concept of creating sounds for emotional response rather than information transfer was revolutionary. Lisa raised her baton, and silence fell across the auditorium. "We'll begin with Earth's Ode to Joy, merged with Milorian light harmonics and Zephyrian quantum resonance. Remember, everyone, feel the music, don't just play it." The first notes rang out, human violins intertwining with Milorian light streams and the subtle quantum hum of Zephyrian tone shells. The sound should have been chaos. Instead, it was transcendent. In the audience, a young Arcturian began to glow, their crystalline structure resonating with the music. Nearby, a Nixilian philosopher's color patterns shifted in rhythm with the melody. The music touched something universal, something that transcended species and culture. "Impossible," whispered Vix, watching as the various alien instruments found harmony with their Earth counterparts. Their sound patterns shouldn't align this way. The performance built to its crescendo. Lisa conducted with her whole body, guiding this unprecedented ensemble through a piece that combined centuries of human musical tradition with alien harmonics never before heard on Earth. In the third row, a Valarn scientist frantically recorded the performance, their sensors struggling to analyze how such disparate sound patterns could create coherent harmony. Their traditional models of musical structure were being completely rewritten. As the final notes faded, the auditorium remained silent for 3 full heartbeats. Then emotion overwhelmed the crowd. Species that had never experienced music, as Art found themselves moved in ways they couldn't quantify. An elderly Milorian approached Lisa after the performance, their light form pulsing with intensity. We have spent millennia perfecting our harmonic equations, yet never thought to simply feel the music. How do humans create such order from chaos? Lisa touched the score of the modified symphony. Maybe that's our secret. We don't always try to create order. Sometimes we just embrace the chaos and find the beauty within it. Music isn't about perfection. It's about connection. The impact of the concert rippled across galactic society. Species that had never considered sound as anything but communication began exploring rhythm and melody. Alien composers started incorporating human musical concepts like harmony and counterpoint into their own artistic expressions. The Galactic Council's cultural division reported an unprecedented surge in cross-species artistic collaboration. A Zephyrian tone poet created a revolutionary piece using Earth jazz structures. Arcturian crystal shapers began studying human dance to inform their artistic patterns. 1 month after the concert, Lisa received a message from First Director Zena. We have discovered that art, like science, knows no species boundaries. Perhaps the universe has rhythms we are only beginning to hear. In her apartment on the station, Lisa worked late into the night, composing new pieces for her expanding interstellar orchestra. She had recently discovered that Nixilian electromagnetic pulses created beautiful countermelodies when played alongside human cellos. A knock at her door revealed a group of young aliens, each holding their species' traditional sound-making devices. Teach us, they asked in various languages. We wish to learn human music. Lisa welcomed them in, moved by their eagerness to explore this new form of expression. As she began explaining basic rhythm concepts, she noticed how each being interpreted the patterns differently, adding their own species' unique perspective to the fundamental principles. Maybe that's the real symphony, she thought, watching her students experiment with their first musical scales. Not just the music we make, but the way it brings us all together, each contributing our own special note to the universal song. Outside her window, the stars seemed to twinkle in rhythm, as if the galaxy itself was learning to dance to a new tune. The emergency alert echoed through the Galactic Council's Crisis Center as reports flooded in from the Nexus sector. A quantum anomaly had appeared without warning, destabilizing the atmospheres of 7 inhabited worlds. Millions of lives hung in the balance as traditional environmental systems failed. Dr. James Chen studied the holographic display of the affected planets, his mind racing through Earth's history of environmental adaptations. Show me the atmospheric composition changes, he requested, fingers dancing across the data streams. Senior Administrator Lyra of the Vailarn approached, their scales reflecting the emergency lights. Our most advanced atmospheric processors cannot compensate for the quantum fluctuations. Even native species are struggling to survive the rapid changes. James nodded, but his attention was fixed on a familiar pattern. These atmospheric shifts, they're similar to what Earth experienced during our Industrial Revolution, just accelerated. We've dealt with this before, just slower. Impossible. A Malorian scientist pulsed. No species can adapt to such rapid environmental changes. Maybe not naturally, James replied, already sending messages to Earth's environmental engineering teams. But humans have centuries of experience creating artificial environments and adapting to hostile conditions. We've been preparing for this since we first built shelters in caves. Within hours, ships from Earth arrived carrying what looked like simplified versions of early terrestrial biodomes. James led teams to each affected world, implementing solutions drawn from Earth's long history of environmental challenges. On Nexilus Prime, they modified techniques developed for desert reclamation to stabilize the shifting atmosphere. The solutions weren't elegant by galactic standards. They involved physical barriers and mechanical filtration rather than quantum manipulation, but they worked. Remarkable, observed Administrator Lyra, watching human engineers adapt Earth mining equipment to create atmospheric barriers. Your species seems to thrive on finding ways to survive in places you shouldn't. James coordinated with his teams across the affected worlds, each group drawing on different Earth environments for inspiration. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. We've spent our entire history figuring out how to live in places that wanted to kill us. The techniques varied by planet. On water worlds, they applied modified deep-sea mining protocols. On arid planets, they used lessons learned from Earth's desert communities. Each solution was improvised, adapted, and improved in real time as they learned what worked. Your methods are inefficient, noted as Ephirian observer, watching humans construct temporary shelters using materials never designed for such purposes. Yet they achieve results our advanced technology cannot match. Efficiency isn't everything, James replied, helping to seal a habitat dome. Sometimes the best solution is the one you can implement right now with the tools you have. Humans call it working with what you've got. As the crisis entered its second week, the results became clear. While the quantum anomaly continued to resist the most sophisticated galactic technology, the adapted Earth solutions were keeping millions alive. It wasn't pretty, but it was working. In the Galactic Council's emergency session, James presented a comprehensive report. "We're not solving the quantum anomaly itself," he explained. "We're just helping people survive until we can. Sometimes adaptation is more important than perfection." The council chambers buzzed with discussion. Species that had evolved in stable environments struggled to comprehend the human approach to survival. The idea of temporarily accepting an imperfect solution rather than waiting for a perfect one challenged their fundamental assumptions. "Perhaps," suggested High Counselor Vex, "this is why humans advance so rapidly. They do not wait for ideal conditions. They adapt to existing ones while working toward something better." The crisis proved to be a turning point in galactic environmental engineering. Species that had relied solely on advanced technology began studying Earth's history of environmental adaptation. The human ability to survive and thrive in hostile conditions became a subject of intense research. 1 month later, as the quantum anomaly finally began to dissipate, James received a message from Administrator Lyra. "Your species' greatest strength may be your refusal to accept impossible situations. You simply keep adapting until the impossible becomes possible." In his temporary office on Nexalus Prime, James watched engineers from a dozen species working together, combining advanced galactic technology with practical human innovation. They were creating something new, hybrid solutions that married the best of both approaches. Maybe that's the real lesson, he thought, sketching plans for a permanent emergency response system. It's not about having the most advanced solution. It's about having the most adaptable one. Outside, the stabilized atmosphere shimmered with quantum patterns, a reminder that sometimes the best way to face an impossible challenge was to simply refuse to accept its impossibility. The Galactic Council's grand chamber glowed with the light of 1,000 stars as representatives from every known spacefaring species gathered for an unprecedented ceremony. High above, through the transparent quantum crystal dome, Earth shone like a blue jewel among the stars. Dr. Elena Martinez stood beside Commander Maya Rodriguez and Sarah Chen, watching as delegations arrived through shimmering teleport gates. 1 year had passed since humanity's solutions had saved multiple worlds from the quantum anomaly crisis, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. "Hard to believe it's only been 5 years since we first reached the stars," Maya mused, adjusting her formal uniform. "Feels like several lifetimes of adventure." Grand Administrator Lyra of the Valarn approached their group, their silver scales now decorated with touches of blue, a tribute to Earth's oceans. "You have transformed our understanding of what's possible. Today, we make it official." The chamber quieted as High Counselor Vex took the central platform. The ancient Malorian's crystalline form pulsed with ceremonial patterns as they addressed the assembly. "For millennia, we believed advancement came through perfect order and predictable progress. Humanity showed us a different path, one of innovation through improvisation, strength through adaptation, and unity through diversity." Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing key moments from humanity's brief but impactful presence in galactic society. The coffee-inspired mathematical breakthrough, the rescue mission in impossible conditions, the quantum bubble scanners, the first multi-species symphony, and the recent crisis response. Today, Vex continued, we established the Galactic Innovation Initiative. This new organization will combine human adaptability with our advanced technology, creating solutions that neither of us could achieve alone. Elena smiled as she saw her quantum bubbles dancing through the display, now being used for everything from medical scanning to atmospheric analysis. Next to that, footage showed Lisa Chen conducting an orchestra where Melorian light harmonics blended perfectly with human violins. The initiative's first project, Lyra announced, will be the creation of adaptation centers on every member world. These facilities will combine human practical experience with advanced galactic science, preparing us for any future challenges. Sarah watched the assembly's reaction, remembering her chess match against HFY. The computer had learned that perfect logic wasn't always the answer, just as the galaxy was learning that progress didn't always follow a predictable path. But perhaps our greatest lesson from humanity, Vex continued, was not their technological innovations or problem-solving abilities. It was their demonstration that diversity, of thought, of approach, of culture, is not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be embraced. The chamber erupted in a celebration that crossed all species boundaries. Arcturian crystal songs merged with human applause, while Zephyrian quantum harmonics created patterns of joy in the air. It was exactly the kind of beautiful chaos that humanity had taught them to appreciate. Later, at the reception, Elena found herself in conversation with a young Nixilian scientist. "But how do you know what's next?" they asked. "How do you plan for a future that follows no logical pattern?"